All right, welcome to our quarterly strategy review for both Secure and Govern. This is a Q&A, so we pre-recorded the videos presenting our strategy here. Hopefully you had a chance to review those ahead of time. We also have links to the slides there in the agenda. But with that being said, if you have a chance, if you have any questions, go ahead and drop those in the agenda. Otherwise, we'll just get started. It looks like there's one here from Olivier, which I can go ahead and verbalize. He says the 12 months roadmap for CA doesn't include any objective related to pipeline-less SCA scans, dependency and license scanning. With the foundation laid down by continuous vulnerability scanning, we're in a good place to do scans without any reliance on the pipeline and could cover 2/3 of the package managers we support today without additional infrastructure. This would open a new business opportunity with customers upgrading to the ultimate tier to get security features without the need to adopt our CI first. And if we develop the corresponding architecture to support workloads outside of the pipeline, like extending Project Runway, we could expand this approach to the other package managers and certainly to other types of scans from other groups of the secure stage. This could also open new possibilities to address several of the adoption issues we have today, which are related to the limitations of our integration via CI jobs. Is this an opportunity worth considering for FY25, or is it too impactful to downstream features and Govern for now? Sarah or John, I don't know if one of you wants to take that response.
Yeah, I can take it, Sam. So thanks for verbalizing that. So I think the strategy here would be kind of reviewing this internally amongst the CA team. I know there's also going to be some cross-team dependencies, so we'll want to fully understand those before we commit to this for our roadmap. And I think in the foreseeable future, right now we're hyper-focused on rolling out continuous vulnerability scanning to GA, as well as rolling that out for container scanning. But at some point, I think this would make sense to be added to the roadmap, but I think we'll have to dig in a little bit more before we add a timeline there.
Yeah, thanks for that. I don't know if somebody else can help with the notes here to keep this up to date for anyone else watching async. On the governed side, I would just add to that I would say I don't know how much this would really impact downstream features in Govern. I think you could do this without any negative impact there because Govern already supports ingesting vulnerabilities in a lot of ways, not just through the pipeline. Like we have an API that can ingest vulnerabilities. And so I imagine that we would implement this on the back end as far as Govern's concerned in a very similar way to what we're doing with like operational container scanning or continuous vulnerability scanning. I think it would essentially be the same. So I don't think this feature would need to be blocked based off of governed concerns. We'd have to change our implementation some, but the governed features would already support this sort of approach.
Okay, that's awesome though. Thanks, Sam.
Phil, thanks for adding a question here. Do you want to vocalize or a comment?
Sure. Not specific to any one thing that we're delivering, but it's more about changes that we're going to make. So we've got priorities YAML files, and we're displaying a list of roadmap priorities on the handbook. How do we need to be concerned, or should we update our process on how we indicate what milestone we're going to be releasing a feature in?
Yeah, good question. I mean, we always include our legal disclaimer anytime we talk about roadmap items, and so that pretty well covers us if priorities do need to move or shift or change. So I think it is reasonable to give our best estimate. I mean, we're pretty public about how we plan ambitiously with our releases, and so I think it's expected that some features aren't going to make it in any given milestone. It is on my to-do list to update this section of the page. I know in the past it's been trying to pull from issues and epics and match the filters, and we've never seemed to have been able to get that query just right to where it actually is accurate. And so at least for the governed stage, now that we've got consistency with all the groups there having a priorities.yaml file, I'd like to update this section so it reads from that priorities.yaml file instead, since those are known items that we're already putting in an estimated date, and that'll remove the dependency. Some of the challenges that we've had in the past is like keeping those epic dates accurate has been really difficult, especially sometimes they depend on the dates of the underlying issues, and it may be a design issue, which may lead you to think that the feature is being shipped when it's not. So we've had a lot of challenges there in the past. I think ultimately we'll want to get that section reading from the priorities.yaml file, so we just have that as a single source of truth. Let's see, did that answer all of your questions that you asked there, or do you have more that I didn't
Look,
cover?
it did. We can move the upcoming releases, which is based dynamically on epics, and we can just have the priorities YAML lists, which is great. How about when we aren't going to deliver something in the target milestone? Can we open an MR to suggest updating that? Can we do that at the last minute? Are we concerned about customers coming back to us and saying, hey, you told us you were going to release this in a certain milestone?
Again, I think we're covered with the legal disclaimer. As long as we include that, we're
Right.
good. But yeah, I mean, it never hurts to keep information up to date to the best of our knowledge. So I would say, anyone can feel free to open an MR. If there's a date that's clearly not going to happen, then let's just open an MR to update the target milestone to when we do think it's likely to ship.
Phil, have you found that customers are calling us out on this with the milestone dates? Is that why you ask, or is there some other reason?
Yes, we did. I don't have the example in front of me, but we certainly had one customer say, hey, you told us you were going to release this in a particular milestone. And we just, our epic had been updated. We'd added more issues to it, so I've bumped it out. That was in the upcoming releases. With priorities YAML, we can be more deliberate because we're opening an MR. We can have our engineering manager and product manager discussing why something is changing, and ultimately the product manager can make the decision to merge the change or not.
Okay. Thanks for the context there.
Cool, great.
I'll just add as well, like in our epics and issues, if they're like, I know when we first went public, there was a push to add the direction label to anything that we felt like was related to our direction and our roadmap. When you add that label, it automatically brings in that legal disclaimer into the description of the epic and issue. So, when in doubt, you can always add that label on, and that's a good way to make sure that we're covered too. All right, I think that's all we've got on that topic. Move down to number 3.
I think that one's fine. Couldn't find my mute button. So I apologize if these were covered. I only got halfway through the govern video. Hannah had just finished talking about custom roles, and I had not gotten to the anti-abuse section yet. So, but I did make a couple of notes as I was watching the videos, and two-part question. I probably should have made it 2 questions, but one of them is I saw that in calendar year 2024, we'll be making some improvements to DAST authentication. And that's a front that I've been seeing more and more, multi-form authentication, MFA, all sorts of different flavors. So I'd be curious if there is like an epic we can track to see the goodness coming on that front. I know it's a ways out. And then the second part of the question is on SAST. So I mentioned of an internal tool for creating checkers or rule sets or controls, whatever the terminology happens to be. And I was wondering if that's something that team members could kind of mess around with.
Yeah, I can speak to the DAST authentication changes. We do have an epic to track the improvements. I did just add it here to the notes. And it's also accessible from our priority list, which is the same kind of YAML file we were just talking about. But we can include those epics in the slide deck going forward just to make it easier to get to so you don't have to go back and forth. And then I'd say that we haven't fully define the scope of what some of those authentication improvements will be. So I think similar to you, we've just noticed that authentication is one area that we see a lot of requests for help coming in, and something we want to improve just to reduce friction and make it easier to onboard. And obviously one of the first steps in setting up DAST. So if you have some other feedback about specific DAST authentication issues, I know you just mentioned, I think like multi-step authentication. If there's other things like that, I'd love to, get your feedback. So maybe I'll grab a coffee chat with you, or we can chat asynchronously too, or start a thread in the dynamic analysis channel.
That's awesome. I have a very narrowly scoped and very specific DAST case. Of course, I could probably make that statement about almost every DAST setup that needs authentication. So I will shoot you a Slack. There's some context I'm leaving out here, and then maybe grab some time in your calendar, Sarah.
Okay, that would be awesome. Thank you. We do also try to address some of them as they come in. So I think there was recently some customer issues around Azure SSO or something. So we have some improvements that are in the works there. But it'd be great to get more of your feedback about what you're seeing.
Yeah,
and
for
if
sure.
there's a pressing customer issue that we need to solve in the short term, we can always reevaluate our priorities.
It's not pressing, Sarah. It's actually Cameron Swords via a help request does have a outstanding issue on this, which is part of the context I'm leaving out. So I can link you to that and then just give you a description in print. It's just, for the benefit of everyone else here, the reason I'm heading behind is this is a very rigid DAST workflow, and it has very oddly laid out buttons which repeat their names throughout the web page. So it makes it kind of hard to fill out the username and credential in the proper form field and then click the correct button, and there's something going a little bit sideways. The prospect did license Ultimate regardless, so we have a little bit more time. It's not holding up a deal or anything, which is why we're working on it with Cameron, but I certainly appreciate any insight. So I'll get in touch.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks for all those questions. Are there any other topics that this group would like to discuss today?
I guess just to the second part of Yu-Chin's question, I don't think anyone on the call necessarily has the knowledge about the SaaS checkers and rule sets. So we might have to follow up on that one once Sarah can cover once Connor's back.
Because I was speed listening. Can you say more? Not you, Sarah. So, but I was speed listening to videos and going through and going through and multitasking. So I will admit my sins on a recorded line. What is the SAST rule set question specifically?
Oh, yeah, Thomas, thanks. In the secure video, there is mentioned that we either have or will have a internal tool for creating static analysis checkers or rule sets. At least that's the way my brain parsed it. And I was just curious if that's something a team member like myself might be able to get my hands on and kind of just monkey around with, try creating a couple simple rules and so on.
Okay, the tool that you're asking about, or at least I'm pretty sure you're asking about, has been named BAP, B-A-P. I will find a link to the project itself, and right after we hang up here. the intended use case of that is built off of a tool that was originally developed for secret detection, where it runs prospective rules against a large number of open source projects, with the rationale being that we can use that to test the relative noisiness or efficacy of the rules that are under development itself. And so this particular tool has been plugged into, there's a repository called SAST rule sets. And then that way, when we're getting ready to release new SAST rules themselves, we can use this as a check to make sure that we want to release them or that they're actually improvements to the rules themselves. It's been plugged in for SimGrep. I believe we've also plugged it in for secret detection, and I think there's one more analyzer where it's been plugged in as a part of the CI. I'll have to go dig for the links, and I'll do that as soon as we hang up.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Thomas. I actually referenced the rule sets repo because I'm getting an increasing number of questions from folks who are like, hey, I've used SimGrep, and I've noticed that a certain rule is not enabled, and we go through the conversation of how we tune those rule sets to reduce the false positive rate and improve capture of high value true positives. So certainly those repos on these two, just not accustomed to working with them or customizing them. No rush. It's really for personal curiosity's sake.
Okay, understood. Yeah, the community rule sets that SimGrep have are complicated. And what I mean by that is whether or not legally they can be used or that they can be packaged up. And so there's, so we hear a lot of questions about that. I understand what you're asking. But yeah, I'll leave it at complicated, and we will continue to build on our own curated rules. At least that's my understanding.
That's totally cool.
Yep.
No, I hear you. I can imagine some of the potential concerns besides the technical when it comes to those. And just while I have the floor, I'll call out really quickly two huge positives. I saw a pre-receive secret detection. For whatever reason, I've been asked about that about like 4 to 5 times in the past 2 months, right? So it's good to see some validation that that's a broader ask. And also it's awesome to bring in or separate authentication and authorization. I think that was a very good move. I did make it through that part of the government video. So appreciate all the work getting put in there.
Great. Yeah, thanks for reviewing it. Thanks for your questions. Should we move on then to number 4?
Sure. That's me. So one of our key themes is speeding up triage and remediation. And what I'm seeing come up with new SaaS Ultimate customers is when they're migrating from their other security tools, such as Veracode or Prisma Cloud, they end up having to make a different strategy to teach their teams about the vulnerabilities and how they're split apart inside of GitLab. And what I've been seeing them ask more is, can we make the Kix scanner distinct tool from SAST? So if we could separate it out to different analyzer type. So I know we have that epic open, and I can provide you more context, Grant. I can schedule a meeting with the customer and also give you more information, but that's what they're trying to do, because that looks like they're giving out different duties to different teams. And so if they could separate that out, it would be easier to separate that to that team until we get more fine-grained permissions, which is what they're trying to get around, which is, do we want to provide them all of this so they can do everything, or will we just have it split out versus teams? Because they seem to be breaking it up into teams instead of like our smaller customers, they end up handling it all together themselves. So it seems like it's, I guess, to speed up the triage, what they're saying is if they were able to have it split out, they could assign that to those people individually that are SMEs on that team and then have them completed quicker.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like the results are getting lumped together, the checks are lumped together, so they aren't able to separate out the individual like approver groups and move a bit more efficiently.
Right.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's hard to start shifting left and teaching them to build this, new way of not scanning at the end, right? Started doing it at the beginning, and creating that code seems to be difficult to get them to start. And so what they were saying is if we could split it down, break it down even smaller it would maybe be easier to get them to start creating that code securely at the beginning, instead of like what they do is they see all, like you said, they see everything together and they're like, well, maybe tomorrow. And so then they just do
Yeah.
all their work, and then tomorrow they come back and realize, well, I didn't really get any guidance on this. And so they keep pushing it off.
Yeah, no, that I think that's a really fair point. I think getting on a few calls with customers to understand this a bit better would be really helpful. I would say in the immediate term, probably between now and 17.0, we have some pretty hefty priorities that I'm sure you're already aware of in terms of moving compliance pipelines into scan execution policies and adding custom YAML support. And we think that's going to, open the door for a lot of different use cases. So this one feels a little in the weeds. I know it's on the scan result policy side. And I just haven't seen a ton of questions or like pain points around it, which maybe I just haven't heard them. So would like to have some discussions and kind of learn more about what they're trying to do here. But yeah, I would just say I don't expect us to action this in the immediate term, but definitely happy to talk some more through this with customers and see where it might fit in the long term to continue picking this up. I know we had created this epic like back in March, so a little bit of time has passed and not much has changed as far as beyond just defining that there's a problem here to be addressed.
It also needs customer feedback, right? Which is lacking in that one. So it's good to
Yeah,
bring that feedback. And that's why I want to make sure before, like, I don't want to tell customers, hey, we'll deliver this just because one person wants it, right? You need that feedback from the community. So I can get some more feedback from that and share that internally with the other CSMs as well to see if there's any other customers that have brought this up. It's not top of the list for them, but it is something that I feel like would help them onboard quicker and more efficiently. And that way later when they triage, they wouldn't have to worry about teaching everybody that step, right? It would be at the onboarding stage.
right. And I think there's a piece of this, if I recall, on Connor's side. I think he's always kind of taken issue with the fact that we're lumping together SAST and SAST IAC, or calling it SAST IAC. And yeah, maybe on the scan result policy side, there's something we can do without any changes on the analyzers. I don't know. I'd have to kind of go deeper and understand a little bit more what's going on there. But yeah, there could be something on both sides needed. I'm not sure.
Sounds good. I'll follow up with you on that.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for raising the question.
Anytime.
Just to piggyback on that really quick, I think that feedback about separating SAST from IAC is not limited just to the policies. Like, we did get some feedback from a customer in a different issue. I think you might have been tagged in there, Grant and Alana. I don't know if either of you remember it, but I think the customer was wanting us to update a schema so that they could separate it out completely and see the results. And the vulnerability report, like, it is a different filter. So it might be worth something that, touches on different groups, but something we might need to prioritize in general.
Yeah,
I
no,
think at the same
that's a good
customer,
point. Yeah.
they were interested in that too. So you're right, it does overlap because that's exactly what they were asking for. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you, Greg.
No, I'm vaguely remembering that too. So yeah, maybe something to consider, Alana, from the reporting side as well.
Okay. Yeah. Possible. I think I'd want to take a closer look and better understand. Sean, I see you're writing a to-do.
Yeah, I'll find the issues and link them together because I'm pretty sure it's the same customer. So I'll make it easier for all of us to discuss that issue together.
If only we had someone who had some experience with Veracode who could weigh in. Just a plug for John, who just joined the team from Veracode. So yeah, you might have some insight to share.
I would have to kind of like dig in, but yeah, I don't have a direct answer. I can look into it and kind of DM you and maybe set up a coffee chat there.
Oh yeah, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
Got it.
All right. Well, thanks for all the participation here. Is there anything else that would like to discuss today? All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Appreciate the conversation here, and we'll chat again next quarter. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.